Welcome sentients of all evolutionary branches to the 347th Annual Intergalactic Tournament. I'm your host, Prax'Mal, bringing you live coverage from the magnificent Dome of Destiny on planet Vorlak. My voice boomed through the arena's audio systems, bouncing off the gleaming titanium alloy walls that towered nearly a mile high. Honestly, after 2 centuries of announcing these bloodbaths, prestigious combat events, you'd think I'd get tired of the same old introduction. But the paycheck keeps my 4 stomachs full, so here we are. For any newcomers tuning in, though I can't imagine who in the 7 sectors hasn't heard of the tournament, this is the premier combat competition in the known universe. 32 warriors from across the galaxy will battle for glory, riches, and the coveted Golden Fang trophy. The crowd roared, a cacophony of screeches, bellows, and whatever passes for applause when you have tentacles instead of hands. Below my commentator's pod, the arena floor stretched out in all its deadly splendor, 5 acres of terrain that could transform from desert to swamp to volcanic hellscape with the push of a button. The betting boards on the eastern wall flashed with constantly updating odds as credits poured in from thousands of worlds. As always, our sponsors at Galactic remind you that wagers can be placed until 10 seconds before each match. Simply scan your neural transmitter or tap your viewing device to access the betting portal. Remember, folks' fortune favors the bold, but the house always takes 18%. My third eye swiveled to check the contestant manifest while my primary eyes stayed fixed on the cameras. That's when I saw it. I blinked all 3 eyes simultaneously, sure I was hallucinating from too much Rigellian whiskey the night before. Well, it seems we have quite the, unusual entrant this year. I couldn't keep the sarcasm from oozing into my voice. For the first time in tournament history, a representative of the species known as human has qualified for competition. The arena erupted in laughter. Even my co-commentator, the usually stoic General Brack Thor, wheezed through his breathing apparatus. "You're not pulling my tentacle, are you, Prax?" he rumbled, mandibles clicking in amusement. "I assure you I am not. According to the official registry, contestant number 27 is one Topher Jackson from the backwater planet Earth in the Sol system." I zoomed my third eye's view onto the contestant's stats. Standing at a mere 6'1", weighing only, is this correct? A fragile 195 pounds with no natural armor, no venomous appendages, and bone density that might as well be classified as crunchy snack by Vorton standards. The betting boards flashed as the odds against the human instantly skyrocketed to 10,000 to 1. The crowd was practically hysterical now. For those unfamiliar with humans, I continued, barely containing my own amusement, these are the peculiar bipeds who still get excited about traveling faster than light, consider their single moon impressive, and believe that putting cheese on everything constitutes culinary excellence. General Brack Thor had composed himself enough to speak again. How did this creature even qualify, Prax? Did someone lose a bet in the selection committee? The official records indicate he passed the preliminary trials on Outpost Station Beta 9. Though between you and me, folks, I suspect someone may have mistaken him for a particularly ugly Tellurian with a genetic disorder. The arena screens suddenly displayed Topher Jackson's official contestant portrait. The human stared back with an expression that, in human terms, appeared to be what they call a grin. To the rest of us, it looked like a threat display showing too many flat, useless teeth. "Ladies, gentlemen, and variations thereupon," I announced, my voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that still carried through the entire dome. "Place your bets now on how long this human survives." The current pool favors less than 8 seconds, with secondary odds on vaporized during introduction. Little did I know that this ridiculous pink creature would soon turn the entire Galactic Combat Federation upside down. And now, honored spectators, feast your many eyes on the traditional parade of champions. First to enter the arena, the reigning deathmatch champion of the Andromeda Cluster, Lord Krul'zak the Inevitable. The eastern gates parted, revealing a 12-foot behemoth encased in obsidian battle armor. Krul'zak's entourage included 20 warrior priests waving banners soaked in the blood of his previous opponents, 3 battle beasts straining against neutronium chains, and a personal orchestra playing his theme music on instruments made from the bones of fallen enemies. Following Lord Krul'zak, please welcome the telepathic terror, Princess Maxa of the 7th Hive. The princess floated 6 feet above the ground, her translucent skin pulsing with psychic energy. Behind her came 30 identical clone servants, each carrying a piece of her legendary psionic amplifier. The crowd gasped as she casually lifted a 2-ton decorative boulder with her mind and split it into perfect cubes that arranged themselves into her royal crest. One by one, the competitors entered with increasingly elaborate displays of power. Commander Krul'zak rode his famous war mount, a creature with 17 legs and acid-spitting mandibles. The cyborg twins from Tau Ceti arrived in a shower of lightning, their mechanical limbs causing minor power fluctuations throughout the arena. The gaseous emperor of Betelgeuse entered as a swirling storm cloud that briefly took the shape of a skull large enough to engulf a shuttlecraft. And now contestant number 27, the human, Topher Jackson of Earth. The smallest gate normally used for maintenance droids slid open with an almost apologetic squeak. And there he was, a pink-skinned biped sauntering in like he was heading to a local watering hole. He wore baggy black shorts that reached his knees, a faded red sleeveless shirt with the incomprehensible letters Chicago Bulls stretched across it, and white footwear that appeared to have no practical combat function whatsoever. A small blue backpack was slung casually over one shoulder. The silence that followed lasted approximately 3 seconds before the arena erupted into the loudest bout of multi-species laughter I've heard in my 246 years of existence. Well, that's certainly an entrance I managed between my own chortles. It appears our human contestant has mistaken the intergalactic tournament for what Earthlings call a casual Friday. General Brack Thor was pounding his armored fist against our commentator's booth. By the void, Prax. Is he carrying a water bottle? A water bottle. Indeed, the human had pulled out a clear container of liquid and was taking a sip while looking around the arena with what appeared to be mild interest, as if he were a tourist at a moderately engaging museum exhibit. The betting systems are practically melting down, I reported, watching the odds displays flicker frantically. We've now got side bets on whether he'll actually survive long enough to hear the opening bell. 10,000 credits says his first opponent will be able to use him as a toothpick after the match. Topher Jackson stretched his arms above his head, revealing absolutely no hidden weapons, armor, or even basic protective equipment. He then had the audacity to wave at the crowd, prompting another tsunami of laughter. Look at the fragile pink creature, I narrated, wiping tears of mirth from my third eye. No scales, no exoskeleton, not even a decent layer of protective mucus. Folks, I've seen more intimidating organisms growing in my food synthesizer after a power outage. The human simply found his designated waiting area, sat down cross-legged on the floor, and pulled out what appeared to be a sandwich from his backpack. It appears contestant Jackson is carbo-loading for his imminent obliteration, I quipped. A touching, if futile, last meal. Little did any of us know that the most underwhelming entrance in tournament history would soon be referenced in military academies across the galaxy. Welcome back, Galactic viewers. For those just tuning in, we're about to explain the tournament format before our first round of preliminary matches begins. I straightened my ceremonial commentator's sash and adjusted the sensitivity on my vocal amplifier. The crowd had finally settled after the parade of champions, but those small bursts of laughter still erupted whenever the viewing screens showed Topher Jackson finishing his sandwich. The tournament consists of 4 rounds of increasingly difficult combat, I explained. Preliminary rounds are randomly assigned, with winners advancing to the quarterfinals, then semifinals, and ultimately the championship match. Each warrior must defeat their opponent through incapacitation, surrender, or let's just say permanent retirement is also an acceptable victory condition. The audience roared their approval. Nothing gets a crowd going like the possibility of witnessing spectacular demise. But our first preliminary match features our human contestant against, oh my, I paused for dramatic effect, against none other than Krul'zak the Destroyer from the toxic wastelands of HFY. The screens displayed the matchup statistics. Krul'zak stood 8 feet tall with 4 heavily muscled arms, each ending in serrated claws that could slice through spacecraft hull plating. His leathery hide had evolved to withstand the acid rains of his homeworld, making most weapons bounce off harmlessly. His victory record showed 107 consecutive kills. The officials must have a twisted sense of humor pairing these two, General Thor commented. Or perhaps they're simply being merciful. The human will die quickly at least. Indeed. Our contestant Jackson might as well have been matched with a black hole, I agreed. For those placing last-minute bets, Krul'zak is favored at let me check, yes, 10,000 to 1. Quite generous odds for what amounts to a guaranteed outcome. The combatants entered the arena floor, which had been configured as a simple circular platform surrounded by energy barriers. Krul'zak stomped in with a roar that shattered 2 low-quality recording drones. He pounded his 4 fists together, creating sparks visible from the highest seats. Then came Topher Jackson, still in his ridiculous shorts, now chewing what appeared to be a pink bubble substance. The contestants approached the center for combat instructions, boomed the official's voice. Krul'zak lumbered forward, already selecting which arm would deliver the killing blow. The human sauntered up, blew a small pink bubble, and popped it with apparent satisfaction. Begin on the sound of the. The bell never finished its first tone before Krul'zak lunged with terrifying speed, all 4 arms extended to rip the human into convenient travel-sized pieces. What happened next caused my third eye to bulge so far from its socket that my medical insurance would later classify it as an elective protrusion. The human simply stepped aside, not with fear or desperation, but with the casual movement of someone avoiding a puddle of liquid on a walkway. Krul'zak, carrying the momentum of his massive frame, found himself grasping at empty air. You're pretty quick for a big fella," the human remarked, his voice picked up by the arena microphones. "But you telegraph your moves like my nephew playing peekaboo." I glanced at the betting boards, which were frozen in apparent disbelief. "It appears our human has dodged the initial attack?" I said, unable to keep the surprise from my voice. No doubt a momentary delay of the inevitable dismemberment. Krul'zak roared in frustration and charged again. This time, the human ducked under 2 swinging arms and, to the astonishment of everyone watching, delivered a strike of his own, directly to a spot between Krul'zak's second and third set of ribs. The arena went silent as the massive alien suddenly froze, then toppled sideways like a malfunctioning construction mech. "What in the 7 moons of Zalthor just happened?" I blurted, professional composure temporarily abandoned. The human walked over to his fallen opponent and poked him with his foot. Krul'zak didn't move, though his respiratory systems continued functioning. "Nerve cluster," Topher explained to no one in particular, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "You guys all have them, just in different places. I did a whole report on comparative xenobiology for my community college class. Got a B-." The medical scanners confirmed what seemed impossible. Krul'zak was completely paralyzed but otherwise unharmed. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentients," I said, trying to regain my composure. "It appears that contestant Jackson has won? Through some form of pressure point technique unknown to our medical staff?" The crowd remained stunned. Thousands of viewing appendages blinked in confusion. Betting system alarms began to sound as the payout calculations threatened to overload the arena's computing systems. The human collected his backpack, pulled out a small electronic device, and appeared to take a selfie with his unconscious opponent in the background before casually walking back to the contestant area. This must be some sort of bizarre accident, General Brack Thor mumbled. No human could possibly. Of course. Beginner's luck. I jumped in, nodding enthusiastically to the cameras. Certainly nothing more than a statistical anomaly. An entertaining start to our tournament, nevertheless. But as I watched the human pull out another sandwich and begin eating, as if he'd done nothing more strenuous than walk to a food dispensary, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. What if there was more to these humans than we had assumed? And there goes another one, folks. Topher Jackson has somehow, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, advanced to the quarterfinals after defeating the venomous Empress of Tau Scorpia. My voice had lost its mocking edge from earlier broadcasts. 3 more opponents had fallen to the human's strange combat methods, each one more bewildering than the last. Against Gortak the Planet Crusher, Topher had simply remained perfectly still until the gargantuan alien became so confused he accidentally stepped outside the combat zone, and automatic disqualification. The telekinetic twins from Zeta Reticuli had been defeated when Topher started singing what he called the song that never ends at such an annoying pitch that their concentration shattered, causing their psychic feedback to knock themselves unconscious. And now, Iluju, the venomous Empress whose toxic spines had killed 43 previous opponents, lay twitching on the arena floor after Topher threw his water bottle into her third mouth, causing her to choke on her own venom sacs. This human, General Brack Thor muttered beside me, is not fighting with honor or skill. He's using, what would you call this? I believe Earthlings call it winging it, I replied, watching as Topher collected his now empty water bottle and returned it to his backpack. Though I must admit, there's a certain twisted genius to his methods. The betting odds had shifted dramatically. Round from 10,000 to 1 against, Topher now stood at merely 50 to 1, still an underdog, but no longer considered a walking snack. Attention, viewers across the galaxy. We have an exclusive interview with our surprising human contestant coming up next. Stay tuned after these messages from Galactic. Remember, when gambling ruins your life, we still keep your money. During the commercial break, I straightened my ceremonial collar and tried to compose myself. The human sat across from me, legs crossed casually, sipping from a new water bottle. So, Mr. Jackson, I began once we were back on air, the question on everyone's mind: how did a member of your, let's say, minimally impressive species end up in the galaxy's most lethal combat tournament? Topher grinned. Funny story, actually. I was bartending on Earth at this place that started catering to alien tourists after first contact. One night, these 3 Arcturian traders got super wasted on tequila. Turns out your guys can't handle agave at all, and they were bragging about this tournament. He took another sip of water before continuing. So they're showing off their betting accounts, right? And I made some joke about how I could probably enter and win the whole thing. Next thing I know, they've put down 1 million credits on me and signed me up as their sponsored fighter. I was pretty hammered myself by then, so I figured, why not? Free trip to space, see the galaxy, maybe get some cool selfies before I die horribly. I blinked all 3 of my eyes in succession. You entered the deadliest competition in known space on a drunken dare? Pretty much, yeah. Plus, I've got like 200,000 in student loans back on Earth. Tournament prize would clear that right up. The audience, listening to this explanation, reacted with a mixture of laughter and confused murmuring. Several high-ranking warriors watching from the luxury boxes began eyeing the human with newfound wariness. But surely you've had combat training? Special forces? Secret human military programs? I pressed. Nah. Just 4 years of high school wrestling, and I did some mixed martial arts to stay in shape after college. Oh, and I read a lot of alien biology textbooks after first contact. Always been interested in where to poke things to make them stop moving. General Brack Thor made a strange choking sound. You're saying you're just an ordinary human? Pretty ordinary, yeah. Though my mom says I have nice eyes. Topher winked at the camera. As the interview ended and Topher sauntered back to the contestant area, I couldn't help but notice how the other remaining fighters gave him a wide berth. Even Lord Krul'zak, who had detonated a small moon during his last conquest, seemed hesitant to make eye contact with the human. "Well, folks," I said, turning back to the camera, "it seems we may have underestimated our human contestant. The quarterfinals begin tomorrow, and I, for one, am starting to wonder if this joke entry might have a few more surprises in store." And for the first time in my announcing career, I wasn't being sarcastic. Welcome back to the most unexpected tournament in the history of the Galactic Combat Federation. I'm your host, Prax'Mal, still trying to process the fact that our human contestant has made it to the semifinals. The arena was packed beyond capacity. Viewing fees had tripled since yesterday, and black market neural feeds were selling for thousands of credits across 17 sectors. Everyone wanted to witness the human phenomenon. Today's semi-final match pits Topher Jackson against Draz Vorn, the personal apprentice and chosen successor of our 9-time champion, Baron Vex'lak. The crowd roared as the arena screens displayed Draz Vorn's statistics: 8 feet of rippling blue muscle covered in bioluminescent war tattoos, 4 consecutive tournament appearances, each ending with him in the Final Four, training since hatching in 17 deadly combat forms, special ability, accelerated perception that made everything appear in slow motion during battle. The odds makers have adjusted their initial assessments of our human contestant, I continued, but Draz Vorn still enters as a 20-to-1 favorite. After all, he's never lost a semi-final match and has personally ended the careers and lives of 62 previous opponents. The arena floor had transformed into a multi-level combat zone with platforms of varying heights connected by narrow bridges. Pools of bubbling acid dotted the lower level, while random jets of flame erupted from the walls. Contestants enter the arena. Draz Vorn emerged from his gate, moving with liquid grace that belied his massive size. He carried a ceremonial electro-spear, a weapon that could deliver charges powerful enough to stop a rampaging war rhino of Deneb IV. From the opposite gate came Topher, still in his now famous black shorts and red sleeveless shirt. The only change to his appearance was a small bandage on his left forearm, a souvenir from his quarterfinal match. "Begin," boomed the official. Draz Vorn activated his electro-spear, causing blue energy to crackle along its length. He began circling the human with practiced precision, his enhanced perception allowing him to analyze Topher's every microscopic movement. "It appears Draz Vorn is taking no chances with our surprising human," I narrated. "His accelerated perception means he can react to attacks before they're even fully launched." The blue warrior lunged forward with blinding speed, his spear aimed at Topher's chest. But somehow impossibly the human pivoted away at the last moment. "Hey, blue guy," Topher called out, his voice echoing through the arena. "Why don't trees ever get lost?" Draz Vorn paused momentarily, confusion evident on his tattooed face. "Because they always stick to their roots," Topher finished with a grin. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. General Brack Thor leaned toward me. "Is this some kind of human battle taunt?" I believe it's what humans call a dad joke," I replied, equally baffled. "A form of humor so terrible it actually circles back to being amusing for some unfathomable reason." Draz Vorn shook off his confusion and attacked again, this time with a complex series of thrusts and feints. Topher dodged most but took a glancing blow to his shoulder, which should have sent paralyzing electricity through his nervous system. Instead, the human just winced and kept moving. "What happened?" I exclaimed. "The electro-spear should have dropped him instantly." Topher pulled something from his pocket and tossed it aside, rubber gloves that he'd somehow slipped on during his initial evasion. "Science class pays off again," he remarked loud enough for the microphones to catch. "Rubber insulation 101. Draz Vorn roared in frustration and charged again. "What did the ocean say to the beach?" Topher called out, causing the warrior to hesitate fractionally. "Nothing, it just waved." This time, several audience members actually groaned. Draz Vorn's rhythm broke just enough for Topher to slide between his legs and pop up behind him. These jokes are part of his strategy. I realized aloud. They're disrupting Dres Vorn's enhanced perception by introducing unexpected cognitive elements. The warrior can't predict what he doesn't understand. For the next 5 minutes, Topher unleashed a barrage of barrage jokes ever heard in the galaxy while playing a deadly game of cat and mouse across the platforms. What's brown and sticky? A stick. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. How do you organize a space party? You plan it. With each terrible pun, Dres Vorn's legendary focus deteriorated further. His movements became erratic, his attacks increasingly desperate. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the most disciplined warrior in the sector was being undone by what humans apparently considered humor. Then came the finishing move. "Hey Dres, I bet you can't hit me with that spear if I stand right here," Topher called, positioning himself in front of one of the acid pools. Enraged beyond reason, Dres Vorn charged full speed, spear extended only for Topher to wait until the last possible second before dropping flat to the ground. The warrior's momentum carried him over the human and directly into the bubbling acid. A collective gasp echoed through the arena as Dres Vorn emerged, shrieking in pain, his precious bioluminescent tattoos dissolving before everyone's eyes. "I give up. I surrender." The warrior screamed, his pride in tatters along with his skin. The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a whispering moth of Tau Ceti breathing. Tens of thousands of spectators sat frozen in disbelief. I finally found my voice. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations, Topher Jackson has defeated Dres Vorn and will advance to the championship match." No cheers, no boos, just shocked silence broken only by Topher's voice as he helped his defeated opponent out of the acid. "Hey, don't feel bad. Did you hear about the guy whose whole left side was cut off? He's all right now." This is outrageous, completely unprecedented. There must be an investigation. High Administrator Quill Nax pounded his gelatinous fist on the conference table, sending ripples through his translucent body. Around him sat the 12 members of the Tournament Oversight Committee, each looking more concerned than the last. I stood in the corner, recording device in hand, having been summoned to provide my professional observations of the humans' performances. "There is simply no way a baseline human could defeat our greatest warriors without illegal enhancements," continued the administrator. "Implants, genetic modifications, performance-enhancing substances, something must be at play here." A mechaloid medical officer projected his findings onto the central display. "We have conducted 17 different scans of the human contestant. Blood analysis, neural mapping, cellular structure examination all show a completely ordinary human physiology. No implants, no modifications, not even primitive steroids." "Then how?" demanded a reptilian official, her scales flushing purple with agitation. "How is this possible?" I cleared my throat, drawing all 19 eyes in my direction. "If I may, respected administrator, I believe it's not what the human has, but what he lacks." "Explain yourself, Prax'Mal." "The human lacks predictability. Every warrior in this tournament has been trained in established combat forms, follows recognizable patterns, and adheres to certain expectations of honorable combat. This human doesn't. He improvises, uses the environment, exploits psychological weaknesses, and prioritizes winning over looking impressive." The committee members exchanged troubled glances. "Are you suggesting," the administrator asked slowly, "that the human's greatest weapon is informality?" "Essentially, yes." After the meeting concluded with a reluctant confirmation of Topher's eligibility for the final match, I found myself in the contestants' preparation area, conducting a follow-up interview. "So, Mr. Jackson, how does it feel to be heading to the championship match tomorrow? To face Baron Vexlak himself, the most decorated warrior in the sector?" Topher was lounging on a bench, scrolling through messages on his communication device. "Pretty cool, I guess. The Baron seems like a real piece of work." 9 championships, huh? Everyone's got to lose sometime. His casual confidence bordered on madness. You realize the Baron has personally defeated over 200 opponents? That he once fought through an entire match with his own severed arm? Yeah, saw the highlights. Seems like he relies a lot on intimidation and his fancy armor. By the way, is the prize money paid in credits, or can I get it converted to Earth currency directly? My student loan sharks, servicers are getting pretty antsy. I blinked in disbelief. You're potentially one match away from becoming the most famous human in galactic history, and you're concerned about educational debt? $200,000 plus interest, man. Do you know how much a master's in xenobiology costs these days? Plus, I had a minor in interspecies psychology that added another 40 grand. That's your motivation? Not glory? Not proving human superiority? Not securing lucrative endorsement contracts across 17 sectors? Topher shrugged. Those would be nice too. But mainly, yeah, I want to get the loan people off my back. Maybe buy my mom a nice house. Simple stuff. As we finished the interview, I noticed a group of aliens hovering nearby, not officials or warriors, but ordinary citizens who had somehow gained access to the preparation area. They approached Topher tentatively, carrying what appeared to be primitive paper objects. Mr. Human, one of them squeaked, would you apply your identification mark to our tournament programs? We are your fans? Topher broke into a wide grin. Sure thing, guys. You want signatures, let's do signatures. For the next 20 minutes, he chatted with his growing fan base, asking about their home worlds, making terrible jokes that nonetheless had them laughing and displaying a genuine interest in their lives. They're so unpredictable, I overheard one fan whisper to another, who knows what they might accomplish next? It's terrifying and wonderful at the same time. As I watched this bizarre scene unfold, a strange thought occurred to me. Perhaps the galaxy wasn't ready for humans after all. Ladies, gentlemen, and sentients of all classifications. Welcome to the championship match of the 347th Annual Intergalactic Tournament. My voice boomed through the arena with extra amplification as the crowd roared so loudly that several atmospheric regulators kicked in to prevent oxygen depletion. Every seat was filled. Viewing rights had been sold to 97% of inhabited systems. This was, without question, the most watched sporting event in galactic history. In my 2 centuries of tournament commentary, I have never, and I mean never, witnessed anything like the journey we've seen from our human contestant. But now, Topher Jackson faces his greatest challenge yet. The arena had been configured into a massive circular platform suspended over what appeared to be an actual miniature black hole, a gravitational anomaly kept barely contained by quantum stabilizers. One misstep off the edge would mean a quick lesson in spaghettification physics. Entering from the Eastern Gate, the most decorated warrior in the history of organized combat, the scourge of the Cygnus arm, the devastator of 1,000 battlefields. I give you the 9-time champion, the one, the only Baron Vex'lak. The Eastern Gate exploded outward as Baron Vex'lak literally blasted through it with his legendary quantum disruptor gauntlets. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, his crimson exoskeleton gleamed under the arena lights. Each segment of his armor was adorned with trophies from fallen opponents' teeth, claws, cybernetic parts, and other grisly mementos. For those unfamiliar with the Baron's illustrious career, I continued as the champion stomped toward the center of the arena. Allow me to recite just a fraction of his accomplishments. Sole survivor of the nightmare pits of Altair VE, conqueror of the Nilvarian Death Fleet, the only being ever to defeat a chronovore in unarmed combat. The crowd chanted the Baron's name as holographic displays around the arena showed highlights from his previous victories, a montage of brutality so extreme that it carried a viewer discretion warning in 16 sectors. Baron Vex'lak enters today's match with his full arsenal. The quantum disruptor gauntlets, capable of reducing molecular bonds to their component atoms. The vortex shield, which can absorb and redirect energy attacks with devastating effect. and of course his natural exoskeleton, which can withstand direct hits from anti-spacecraft weaponry. The Baron reached the center platform and raised all four of his arms, activating his gauntlets with a pulse of energy that temporarily disrupted the arena's lower-grade electronic systems. And now, entering from the western gate the human, Topher Jackson. There was no explosion, no dramatic entrance. Topher simply walked out, still wearing the same shorts and red shirt from his first match. The only differences, his shirt now had several small tears, and instead of his usual water bottle, he carried a small red container labeled Frank's Red Hot Sauce and what appeared to be a roll of gray adhesive material. Mr. Jackson enters his first championship match armed with hot sauce and duct tape. I couldn't keep the bewilderment from my voice. Bold strategy, as the humans say. The crowd's reaction had transformed since the tournament began. What was once universal mockery had become a mix of cheers, gasps, and excited murmuring. Some spectators even wore crude red headbands in imitation of the human's distinctive shirt. Contestants approached the center for final instructions. Baron Vex'Lak stomped forward, each footstep leaving small cracks in the arena floor. Topher sauntered up with the relaxed gait of someone meeting a friend for lunch. I have crushed 17 species in championship matches, the Baron growled, his translator struggling to convey the full menace in his natural voice. Your skull will make an excellent drinking vessel. Cool, Topher nodded. Hey, quick question, are you allergic to capsaicin by any chance? The Baron's confusion was evident even through his armored face. What is this capsaicin? Another pathetic human trick. You'll find out, Topher replied cheerfully. Combatants ready. Begin. The Baron wasted no time, immediately launching a devastating combination of attacks. His lower right arm fired a quantum blast that should have disintegrated Topher on the spot. His upper arms swung massive gauntlets in a pincer movement designed to crush anything that survived the blast. But Topher was no longer standing where he had been. With a sideways dive that would have impressed professional athletes on Earth, he rolled under the Baron's guard and came up behind him. Too slow, big guy, he called, seconds before the Baron's tail whipped around and caught him squarely in the chest, sending him flying toward the edge of the platform. The crowd gasped collectively as Topher skidded to a stop mere inches from the black hole's event horizon. A small fragment of his shoelace dangled over the edge and instantly stretched into an impossibly thin line before disappearing. First blood to Baron Vex'Lak, I shouted. The human narrowly avoids early elimination. Topher scrambled to his feet, wincing and clutching his ribs. The Baron laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your bones are brittle, human. Your muscles weak. Your skin offers no protection. You should have stayed on your insignificant planet. What happened next became known as the moment in sports broadcasts across the galaxy. Instead of running or trying another evasive maneuver, Topher charged directly at the Baron. Is the human attempting suicide? General Brack Thor gasped beside me. The Baron brought all four gauntlets together to create a quantum shockwave that would atomize anything in its path. But just before it discharged, Topher slid baseball-style between the Baron's legs, ripped open his hot sauce bottle, and emptied its contents directly into the Baron's unprotected respiratory vents at the back of his knees. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The Baron's quantum discharge went wild, blasting a hole in the arena's reinforced ceiling. He collapsed to his knees, with all four hands clutching at his respiratory vents as he made a sound no one had ever heard from the champion before, something between a shriek and a gurgle. What is happening? I shouted, standing up so quickly I knocked over my beverage. The human has deployed some kind of chemical weapon. Topher, not wasting the opportunity, pulled out his roll of duct tape and began rapidly wrapping it around the Baron's lower arms, binding the quantum gauntlets together. Just a little Earth cuisine, buddy, he explained conversationally as he worked. We put this stuff on chicken wings. Builds character. The Baron tried to grab him with his upper arms, but his coordination was completely disrupted by whatever biological reaction was occurring in his respiratory system. Tears poured from his compound eyes as his exoskeleton began changing colors in distress patterns. The very weaknesses the Baron mocked appeared to be strengths. I realized aloud. The human's lack of exoskeleton means he isn't affected by whatever chemical agent he's deployed. This is unprecedented. With the Baron's lower arms secured, Topher circled around and with surprising strength shoved the disoriented champion toward the edge of the platform. "No one expects the human with hot sauce," Topher quipped as the Baron teetered on the brink. Baron Vex'lak, 9-time champion, terror of the galaxy, made a desperate last attempt to regain his balance. For a moment, it seemed he might succeed. Then Topher Jackson, human bartender with student loans, simply reached out and pushed him over the edge. Time seemed to slow as Baron Vex'lak, the most feared warrior in 17 sectors, toppled over the edge of the platform. His forearms flailed wildly, quantum gauntlets still bound by simple earth adhesive tape. For a split second, his leg caught on the rim, a final chance at salvation. That's when Topher leaned down and whispered something in the Baron's audio receptor. Whatever he said caused the Baron's eyes to widen in shock just before his grip failed completely. Inconceivable, I screamed, abandoning all pretense of professional detachment. Baron Vex'lak has fallen. The human has actually done it. The quantum stabilizers caught the Baron before he reached the event horizon of the miniature black hole as per tournament safety protocols. He materialized on the medical platform, his proud exoskeleton now a pitiful shade of embarrassment yellow, respiratory vents still streaming from the capsaicin assault. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations. My voice cracked with excitement. In the most shocking upset in the history of competitive combat, Topher Jackson the human has defeated Baron Vex'lak and is our new galactic champion. The arena erupted like a supernova. Thousands of spectators jumped from their seats, tentacles, pseudopods, and appendages waving frantically. Several empathic floaters actually exploded from the intensity of the collective emotions. Security drones struggled to contain the pandemonium as dozens of fans attempted to rush the arena floor. This defies all logic, all expectations, all precedent. I was practically dancing in the commentator's booth now. A human with nothing but hot sauce and adhesive tape has toppled the most decorated champion in tournament history. General Brack Thor had fallen out of his seat in shock. What did he whisper to the Baron? What could possibly have made him let go? The tournament officials surrounded Topher, raising his arm in victory as holographic fireworks exploded overhead. The human looked almost surprised by his own triumph, blinking in the flashing lights as the championship anthem played. We have confirmation that betting systems across 32 sectors have crashed from the payout calculations. I reported breathlessly. The Galactic Banking Consortium has issued an emergency stabilization order. Fortunes have been made and lost in the last 30 seconds. Baron Vex'lak, meanwhile, had regained enough composure to stand, though his exoskeleton still pulsed with humiliation patterns. He stomped over to the medical drones, shoving them aside as he approached the human. The arena fell silent. Would the defeated champion attempt revenge outside the official match parameters? It wouldn't be the first time a disgraced warrior had violated tournament protocols. Instead, the Baron dropped to one knee, a gesture of ultimate respect in his culture, and extended one of his gauntlets, now powered down, to Topher. I think he's offering the human his quantum disruptor gauntlet," I whispered in awe. "This is unprecedented. These weapons are family heirlooms, passed down through 15 generations of Vex'lak warriors." Topher, displaying surprising cultural awareness, placed his hand on the gauntlet, but gently pushed it back toward the Baron. He then offered what humans call a fist bump instead. After a moment of confusion, the Baron reciprocated the gesture with surprising gentleness for a being who could crush starship hulls. We're receiving a translation of what the human whispered to the Baron before his fall. General Thor announced, having recovered his composure and checked the official audio feeds. Apparently he said, and I quote, "Your shoes untied." I blinked all three eyes in confusion. But the Baron doesn't wear shoes, and he wouldn't know what untied means in that context. Exactly. Thor exclaimed. It was the perfect psychological disruption. The Baron was momentarily confused by a reference to human footwear customs he didn't understand. By the time he processed the irrelevance of the statement, he had already lost his grip. The realization of how thoroughly the human had outplayed the champion physically, chemically, and psychologically sent another wave of chaos through the arena. Several high-ranking military officials could be seen frantically making calls, presumably to their respective defense ministries. Topher Jackson, the human who entered this tournament as a joke, I declared as he stood center stage, championship belt looking ridiculously large around his waist, that leaves it a legend. The awards ceremony took place 3 hours after the match. Once the arena's structural integrity had been restored and the riot control drones had managed to calm the more enthusiastic spectators, representatives from 67 worlds stood on the presentation platform, each holding a piece of the massive championship trophy, a sculptural monstrosity, crafted from rare metals and embedded with gems worth more than some planetary economies. And now, announced High Administrator Krul'zak, his gelatinous form quivering with what might have been excitement or lingering fear. I present the champion's prize to Topher Jackson of Earth. The human sauntered onto the platform, having changed out of his battle-worn clothes into identical fresh ones. Same black shorts, same red sleeveless shirt. His hair was still damp from what he called a quick shower. "Thanks, man," Topher said, accepting the trophy with the same casual attitude he might show when receiving a drink at a bar. "This is pretty cool. Kinda heavy, though." That trophy represents the highest honor in competitive combat. The administrator exclaimed, "It has been coveted by warriors for generations. Empires have risen and fallen in pursuit of it." Topher nodded appreciatively. "Yeah, the craftsmanship is nice. Should cover those student loans with plenty left over." He glanced around. "Is there like a check too, or is it all in the trophy? I should probably talk to an accountant about space taxes." I watched this exchange from my position at the ceremonial commentator's podium, struggling to maintain my professional demeanor. This human had single-handedly upended the galactic combat hierarchy and was now inquiring about tax implications. In addition to the trophy and the standard prize of 10 million universal credits, the administrator continued, "We have received 342 official offers for the champion since the match ended." "Offers?" Topher raised an eyebrow. "Yes, 17 planetary defense forces wish to recruit you as a combat instructor. 23 private security firms have offered executive positions. The Galactic Entertainment Network wants to create a reality program about your life. The Arcturian royal family has proposed marriage to their heir apparent. And the Vex'lak clan has formally requested that you consider becoming Baron Vex'lak's successor, which would grant you control over 11 star systems and a battle fleet of considerable size." Topher whistled. "That's a lot. Can I get those in writing? Maybe take a few days to think about it?" As the ceremony concluded and the human was escorted away by an honor guard of tournament officials, I turned to my broadcast feed for one final commentary. "Viewers across the stars, we have witnessed something truly remarkable today. A being from a species we dismissed as weak, primitive, and laughable has demonstrated that our understanding of strength may be fundamentally flawed." I paused, choosing my next words carefully. Perhaps the most dangerous trait in this vast universe isn't armor or claws or venom or technology. Perhaps it's the ability to see beyond conventional methods, to use the unexpected, to adapt without constraints of tradition, to turn weakness into strength. If this single human could accomplish all this with hot sauce and tape, Imagine what their species might do if they ever truly set their minds to something. I shuddered slightly at the thought. This is Prax'Mal, signing off from the most consequential tournament in our history. And offering one piece of advice to the galaxy: do not underestimate the humans. They might just be the most dangerous species of all. Welcome to the 348th Annual Intergalactic Tournament. I'm your host, Prax'Mal, coming to you live from the newly rebuilt Dome of Destiny on planet Vorlak. My voice echoed through the expanded arena, now twice its original size to accommodate the unprecedented audience. The betting boards had been upgraded with quantum processors to handle the volume of wagers flowing in from across the galaxy. This year's tournament features a record number of entrants, with qualifying rounds extended to 6 weeks to accommodate all applicants. And most notably, I paused for dramatic effect. A full 27% of our contestants are humans. The screens around the arena displayed statistics from the previous year tournament viewership up 340%, combat training academies overwhelmed with new students, and a galactic combat rulebook hastily revised to prohibit Earth condiments as weapons. The galaxy has officially entered what experts are calling the human era of competitive combat. Traditional warriors are scrambling to adapt to what humans call thinking outside the box, while defense ministries across 17 sectors have classified human psychology as a strategic resource. As I continued my introduction, the feed briefly cut to a special remote transmission, a live check-in with last year's champion. The split screen showed Topher Jackson reclining on a beach chair on his homeworld, Earth. Crystalline blue water lapped at white sand as he sipped something colorful from a hollowed fruit. Joining us briefly, our reigning champion, who shocked the galaxy but declined to defend his title. Topher, your victory last year has inspired hundreds of humans to follow in your footsteps. Any thoughts on this year's tournament? Topher lifted his sunglasses and grinned at the camera. Yeah, good luck to everyone competing. Especially Baron Vex'Lak Jr. We've been exchanging messages, and his trash talk is getting pretty good. Oh, and thanks for the beach house. The prize money set me up nicely. And what about all those offers? Military positions? Corporate security? The arranged marriage to Arcturian royalty? The chance to rule 11 star systems? Nah, Topher shrugged, taking another sip of his drink. Too much responsibility. I'm good right here. Though I did license my hot sauce technique to that security firm, they're making a killing with non-lethal riot control now. As the transmission ended and I returned to introducing the tournament, I couldn't help adding one personal observation. You know, folks, I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially, a year ago we all laughed at the idea of a human champion. We thought the very suggestion was absurd. But perhaps the greatest victory Topher Jackson achieved wasn't defeating Baron Vex'Lak, it was making us all underestimate humans. I chuckled, shaking my head. And just between us, I suspect that's exactly how they want it. So this year, when you're placing your bets, remember, the most dangerous creature in the galaxy might just be the one that looks the least threatening. A deafening roar filled the arena as the first human contestant entered, a grandmotherly woman in her 60s carrying nothing but a rolling pin and a smug smile. The galaxy would never be the same again.